Hello. Today I have something different. And now for something completely different. Previously on this channel I've reviewed lenses that were about 50 years old. This lens is one that's still produced today. In fact, you can go to lensbaby.com, their website, and pick one up for yourself. Just a note, this is not a sponsored video. I picked this one up from someone who was selling it off of the Facebook Marketplace, not even knowing what it was. It just sounded interesting, so I picked one up. So this is the Composer Pro with the Sweet 35 lens. Now, to explain first, the Sweet 35 is a lens where the center is in focus and the outside is out of focus on purpose. This is for artistic effect, obviously. And the Composer Pro has two interesting features. One is that it has this ring at the bottom that you can loosen and then move the lens around like this. Now, when I first saw this, I thought this was a tilt shift lens. It's not. What this does is it allows you to take the part of the lens that's in focus and shift it to somewhere else on the frame. So if your subject is off center, you can still focus on them and have everything off to the side be out of focus. The other interesting part about this is the optic swap system. As I had said earlier, I have the Sweet 35 lens in this. What I mean is you can take the lens out of the body. It's a little difficult to do, but they have other lenses that you can get for this. This is the Sweet 35, which has a sweet spot in the center, and it's a 35mm lens. They also have a Sweet 50 and I believe a Sweet 80. And then there's one called the Edge that has a band of focus where a line down the center will be in focus, but everything above and below that line is out of focus. But of course, when it's in the body, you can turn the whole thing. So if you want that line of focus to be vertical, vertical. Want it to be diagonal, it can be diagonal. There's a few others too. There's one called the Swirl, which gives a swirly bokeh effect similar to the Helios 44-2 that I reviewed a few weeks ago. And of course, all of these come in 35mm, 50mm, and I think 80mm. You just go to their website and see what they have there. As for the other physical characteristics of this lens, this particular one happens to have an EF mount on it. So I'm using an EF to E-mount adapter to mount it to my camera. But that's just because I bought this one used from someone who had an EF mount version. And if you go buy one new, you can order it with the mounting flange for all of the popular cameras that are out there today. So you can get it for Canon, for Sony, for Nikon. The focus ring has this nice little rubber grip on it, but it only goes for about 1/4 of a turn, which makes it a little hard to nail focus because it's very fine-tuny fiddly. The focus, though, is controlled by the Composer Pro body, but the aperture is actually inside the removable part. It has clicks going from f2.5 to 2.8, and then 4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, and 22. There are threads on the front for a filter, but I don't know what size filter it takes. I didn't happen to try and find one in my collection that would fit this. And, honestly, if you're using a lens like this, what kind of filter are you going to put on it? So maybe a neutral density filter, I suppose. Let's look at some charts for this. Seems kind of like a silly thing to do on this one, but here's the focus chart. And at f2.5, we can see that the center is reasonably sharp. Especially around the checkerboard area here, and around this 2.0. But once you get out to the 1.0 or the sunburst pattern, there's some ghosting. And if we go to the corners, on a normal lens, I would call this horrible. But with this lens, this is kind of the point. You want the outside of your shot to be out of focus. And it has this interesting double image. If we look at the checkerboard pattern, you can see here's the main pattern, and here's a ghost of it, or maybe the other way around, I don't know. And this line, here it's straight and here it's kind of curved. If we go to f8, more of the center is in focus. There's a bit of chromatic aberration, but the checkerboard area is pretty sharp. And the corners are still a smeared mess like you would expect. At f16, the center starts to look normal. The corners are less blurry, but it still has the same effect, just to a lesser degree. So we can see that if you want more of your shot to be in focus, stop it down a bit and you'll get more in focus. If you want just the very center of the shot to be in focus and the outside to be out of focus, shoot wide open and you'll get that effect. Onto the distortion chart. At f2.5, I can't even see the grid lines outside the center. So I stop down to f22 and we can see that there's some barrel distortion here. But really, if you're using this lens for the artistic effect, do you care? Probably not. Here's some sample photos that I took. This is a local bar that happens to have blues bands a lot. Note how the name of the bar is somewhat in focus. The colored lights around the top are nice oval bokeh blobs. The second sign, the word live, is in focus, but it gets progressively more out of focus as we move to the outside of the picture. In this third photo, this guy's name is Brad. He was just hanging around outside the bar waiting for a band to start. And I asked if I could take his picture because I wanted somebody in front of the neon sign, and it kind of reflects off of his head nicely. But you can see he's mostly in focus. This was really hard to focus in low light conditions. I had my ISO bumped up in order to even get this. But he's in focus and the sign is nice and blurry in the background. You get some really nice effects with this lens. In conclusion, this is a pretty cool system. I like the fact that you can change out the lens for different effects. It's not for everyday use. You wouldn't use this to go out and take weddings or things like that. You might do one or two shots of the bride, with this lens just to get the interesting effect. But your main shots would be with your 70 to 200 good lens. But for artistic shots, it's great. I kind of like this. I like if I can do it again, I like the idea that you can swap the lenses out and use different effects. They're not horribly cheap, but they're not horribly expensive either. This lens gives kind of a dreamy-like effect with the outside being out of focus and the center being in focus. Like, your peripheral vision is blurred and you can't see anything out of what you're supposed to be focusing on in the dream. So, that's the Lensbaby Composer Pro Suite 35. If you like this video, click the like button, hit subscribe if you'd like to see more, and click the little bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. And the colored lights around the top are nice oval bokeh blobs. Say that 3 times fast.